Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the official podcast of EO Nashville. We are interviewing like-minded entrepreneurs who share their stories and wisdom gained through the ever-present specter of decision-making. If you're an entrepreneur, you know how that goes. Always a decision to be made. And so we're here to talk about how those go and tell stories around them, the tough decisions that we have to make every day. I'm Eric Jackson, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, my cohort, fellow EO member and fellow entrepreneur, Mr. Robert Hartline. Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
And this is a special episode too, right?
It is a special episode. This is season 2.
Yeah.
We have now fully completed 13 of our first allotted episodes on decision making. And you know what? It felt like being a rookie last season. I felt a little uncomfortable trying to figure out how to do this kind of work, but it gets better as we do it.
That's right. It's repetition, kind of like making decisions. The more you make, the easier they get mostly.
I had an email from a member in Greece. Reached out to me, said, listen to the podcast, love it. We got on a chat and we just shared some stories about his podcast he's doing as well. And I was like, how do you hear about us? Like, I guess we're out there. I guess people are actually listening, Eric. So we have to really be careful what we say in season 2.
Yeah, we're big in Greece. That's good to know.
Big in Greece. I love it. Yeah, you should know about our fans in Greece.
Yeah. Well, we're today we decided to start taking some risks in season 2. So who better to do that with than Mr. Kevin Roddey, Pinnacle Financial Partners and Strategic Alliance Partner of EO Nashville.
Indeed.
Or as I call him, the secret mayor of EO Nashville.
I thought you were going somewhere else.
No.
I'll accept that.
Don't worry. You can pay me later for hiding all your bad secrets.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you.
Yeah. Glad you're here.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Episode 1 of season 2. I mean, that's... I'm honored. And for you guys, there's nowhere to go but up from season 2 from here on out. If you ask the banker for the first episode, it gets better from here. So,
well, I told you we were taking some risks. There we go.
And I appreciate that from a guy that doesn't take a lot of risk. So,
and a special thank you as well from EO and the fact that Pinnacle has been a sponsor for the last 21 years. That's the longest running partnership as a SAP that we have had. And and I think everyone knows who you are in EO.
For better or worse, but it's been a great partnership. And that, that was, as I understand, I wasn't here with Pinnacle 21 years ago. We started the firm, or the bank was started in 2000. So that would have been 2002. And as I understand it, that sponsorship, as what it was called at the time, was approved by the board. It was I think it was like $1,000 annual sponsorship ask. And at the time, that was a lot of money for a startup bank. So the story that I was told, it was sent to the board. There was some debate, and it was approved by board approval. And since then, we've grown into a very large bank, and the partnership has been just outstanding between Pinnacle and the EO Nashville chapter here, which has grown to the 3rd largest chapter in the world. I don't have to tell you all that,
the largest in the United States.
Right.
So we've grown with you guys. So it's been great.
And you know what I like to add too, I first came in contact with you. You reached out to me on the phone one day and invited me to do book club.
Yeah.
And
mastermind group.
It was a mastermind group, Reading Traction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I thought at the time, I was like, this is a brilliant way to meet other entrepreneurs and from a bank aspect. Because, bankers typically, you get involved in a conversation, but bring people together, get them having a conversation. Right. It's just a different way to connect.
Yeah, I loved it. I haven't done one in a while, but I want to rekindle it. And it's the Mastermind series has been adopted throughout the bank. And it's just a great way, like you said, to bring like-minded entrepreneurs, business owners together, 6 to 10 at a time, throw out traction or E-Myth Revisited. The moderator, which would be me or one of my colleagues, would throw out 1 or 2 questions, and it just feeds on itself. And these are business owners that are really trying to improve their business, work on their business versus in their business, which is the old cliche. I think that's the way it goes.
Anyway, the way it's supposed
we'll go with that.
Yep.
But it's been a huge success for our clients. And, I run into people all the time like yourself who said, man, that was really cool. You need to do it again. And so
that's just
it is really cool. And I need to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it as a perfect example of how to help.
Yeah.
And by helping, you help yourself.
That's right.
By being around other people that are growing and eager to, strengthen either their network or their business.
Yep.
And so tell me your journey to being a banker. Did you play with like little retail banking centers as a child? Or what about banking?
It is so, it's not very interesting. And it was sort of by accident. And, I'm originally from Memphis, graduated from college in 94. When I got out of college, I had 2 job offers to go into credit training programs at 2 different banks, one here in Nashville and one in Atlanta. And my father was a career Bank of America guy. So I'm in the family business, if you will. He said, don't be a banker. It is stifling. It is rigid. The regulations are getting worse and worse. This is 94, by the way. You got silos within the bank, competing interests. So do something different if you can. I said, all right, Dad, thanks. So I started with a firm called Equitable Securities, which is no longer around, but I was a wholesaler of mutual funds, calling on brokers, getting them to sell my funds to their clients. So that was my first, that was my entree into the financial services industry. And I've bounced around different aspects of the industry since until about March 2009. I was in wealth management prior to coming to Pinnacle, focusing primarily on 401k business. And I ran into Rob McCabe. I knew him through various contacts, Nashville being the small town that it is. And he said, I think you'd be a great addition to the team to help build out the 401k business. And I said, well, that sounds like a good opportunity to join a dynamic bank, or at least what I thought, and it turned out to be very true, as a dynamic and growing bank. And so started out in the 401k business, but I was finding more bank deals than I was 401k or wealth management opportunities. So I went back to Rob about 6 months into it and I said, I think I'd be a better banker than I would be in the wealth management. And truth be told, I would have been a banker, but my banker father talked me out of it. And he basically said, we got, just get back to where I started. We got nowhere to go but up with you, Roddey. So you're not doing much on the 401k side.
So do you often not listen to your dad?
No. Dad to this day, he's one of my best friends, and just full of wisdom. But he just get into banking. Well, for the reasons that I mentioned, regulations increasing. Cap on the amount of money, it's getting harder. He was right about the industry, but Pinnacle's been a great place. I've loved banking, love Pinnacle even more. So it's been a great, it's amazing. The paths we come to and the forks we come to in the road. And that was one that was presented to me. And that was 14 plus years ago. So.
Yeah, I've always been impressed with the culture at Pinnacle. And I've actually went to a little seminar, and there were several presenters, and of course, one of them was that's the other guy at Pinnacle, Terry
Turner. Yeah.
Terry Turner was talking about how you guys built the culture, what it has done for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think you're right. It is. We've grown into a $45 billion bank, top 50 bank, and this is from zero in 2000. So. You don't think of banks, in a lot of cases, as great entrepreneurial success stories, but Pinnacle is, in fact, a great entrepreneurial success story. And the cornerstone of Pinnacle is really being the best place to work. In fact, that is our vision. That's what we say at every company meeting: is we want to be the best financial services firm for its employees in the Southeast and even the country. And it's old. I mean, as business owners, y'all appreciate it. If you take care of your people, everything else takes care of itself. Most importantly, your happy people will take care of your clients and make sure they're happy. And so that's what Pinnacle has done. And that was the cornerstone of the bank when it founded, still is today. The culture is, when I first started in 2009, I was like, man, there's a ton of company Kool-Aid being drunk around here. And 6 months into it, I'm like, hey, I get it. I'm drinking it too, as much as I can, because they do a great job of building a great collaborative culture, which is reinforced by two things structurally. One, we all get stock, so we all consider ourselves owners. So every year we get stock grants, so we have skin in the game. And two, the bonus structure is brilliant in its simplicity, but it's also really a great way to bring everybody together in that everybody basically gets the same percentage of salary as a bonus at the end of the year if we hit our goals and objectives. So it's a win together, lose together. And when I'm saying everybody, I mean from the mailroom all the way up to the corner office.
Well, it says something that you've been there that long because, you're really a connector in town. You're connecting a lot of people with, even other services that they need, but you're really helping other entrepreneurs. And you have a lot of trust in the bank to take care of the people you bring into the fold.
Yeah.
Because it would be really uncomfortable if you're going out and building great relationships and you bring them to your team and your team's not aligned with your culture, then you're going to lose that contact. And all we have is our relationships in this town.
Exactly.
And
right.
our town is so, it's, I tell everybody, this is absolutely one of those situations where we are in a big pond. It's not a wide open ocean. I mean, you literally can know about anyone by knowing a few people because we are all connected to someone in some facet.
Every day I'm reminded of that.
Yeah.
There's a half degree of separation in this town. So you never forget that. I mean, because if you do so at your own risk. And it's only one bad decision away from ruining that relationship or even worse, your reputation.
Yes.
And then it's like wildfire.
So speaking of decisions, and it's exactly why we're here today. I mean, we know as entrepreneurs that in a forum scenario, we often have, and the reason this podcast exists is we are faced with something challenging in the business. That it's either an employee issue or financial issue, or we're growing too much, not enough cash, or things are slow. We need some cash. And often money is a huge topic of concern around decision making. So I'm sure you have some stories about entrepreneurs calling you in desperation, right? Which is the worst time to call the bank. But help us understand what it's like on the other side, because we know what it's like and feel like an entrepreneur when we need that help. But on the other side of the equation, help us with some pointers of what an entrepreneur knowing straight from the banker's mouth, what should they be looking for before that crisis even happens?
Well, there is an old saying, don't ask for a loan if you need the money. In other words, you get approved the loan when you can approved for a loan when you can prove that you can pay them back like 3 or 4 different ways. When you don't need the money is when you get the money. And it's sort of, it's the truth because if you think about what we're doing, we're lending people's deposits out. Your money, your deposits in Pinnacle Bank, hopefully, is being lent out by our firm. And we have to do it in a way that minimizes almost every risk point and maximizes our ability to get that money back, your deposits, maximizes the probability of that to about 100%. So we're not built to take a lot of risk. We are a source of capital of many sources of capital that a business owner can look at. But our source of capital is arguably the cheapest. But the reason is that we are not built to take a lot of risk. We're not investors. We're bankers where we are looking in the rearview mirror and trying to find profitable companies where we are comfortable and confident that we can get our money back if we make our loan or make that loan. So business owners, conversations I've had with business owners typically are, they're in a growth mode, right? They are, they're bringing on new clients. They need a larger credit facility to handle the gap between payables and receivables. They need a new piece of equipment or a new building. the clients, the conversations that I have mostly with clients are in those periods where they need capital to continue to grow. Where they come to me and we're starting to see this, thankfully not a lot, but there's, we can talk about this maybe a little bit later, but we're starting to see some clouds on the horizon as it relates to the overall economy. So, where we start getting those calls, the way we can help those people or those business owners is, looking at their long-term track record, understanding the business model, and hopefully there's a relationship in place. I mean, that's getting back to your question from 5 minutes ago. What can entrepreneurs do? They can start a partnership with a bank and a banker that they know, like, and trust that will weather the storm or weather both good times and bad. Because when good times are there, pretty easy to help businesses. When the times do get challenging, the relationship is really what will allow me to go help that business owner when they're down 20% year over year because of things that may, it could be one of many factors. But because I have that relationship, know them, like, and trust, and they've got a long-term track record with me of trust, I'll go to bat for that business owner with my decision maker.
When I first joined EO in 2015, we had Nerve in Nashville.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And new EO member, I'm going to Nerve. I go to an event. A speaker was talking about growing through acquisition.
Uh-huh.
And I have a little software company, and I read TechCrunch all the time. And I'm always reading about, VC funding, angel investing, those kind of things. And in my head, I was like, well, those are avenues to grow a company, is go out and get that money.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing he talks about is getting money from the bank,
Yeah,
leveraging your house as an asset to get a loan. And I was like, well, oh, yeah, duh. You can get money from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's exactly what helped me start acquiring other businesses is through you leveraging the bank. And the money is so much cheaper, obviously. And the risk is different.
And you're not taking on a partner.
Right.
Either.
Yeah, exactly right. But for you, I assume that first conversation with your bank was the most difficult one. They want to see your plan. Why does this acquisition make sense, both financially, but also from a qualitative standpoint? What about the culture here? What about the owners that you're taking out, key employees? We want to see, just like any investor, we want to see what that looks like and the rationale behind that. As you you were a serial acquirer, as I understand it. So the first 2 or 3, you had a successful track record. And my guess is that 4th or 5th conversation got a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Same questions, but maybe instead of a 30-minute conversation, we did a 10-minute conversation. And then the success and the cash flow from a financial standpoint, help that bank say, all right, we understand the qualitative side. Now on the quantitative or financial side, he can support that loan. So yeah, banks are great, sources of capital for acquisitions, whether it be the bank or SBA. I mean, we've got a large SBA group that is a great solution for small business acquisitions.
What I think is interesting is what you mentioned is the bank is interested in your culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
because how they run their business is a key factor in deciding whether or not you're going to loan somebody money, is it not?
Yeah. Because how you run your business and the culture, it's like if we had a bad culture, Pinnacle would not.
Well, how do you see that as the bank though?
You sort of, you ask the questions. All right, how is your what is the turnover? I mean, there are some metrics you can use that are pretty clear about how well that culture is, either at the target company or your current company. So you can ask those questions, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's not. We're not doing a deep dive in that, but we want to understand what those synergies are, not just financially and cost savings and all those typical financial metrics, but is your key the employees. You're acquiring a company with that may have been successful, may not have, but you've got some key employees. What are you going to do to maintain their employment there? Because that's very, very important.
One thing that I've done just by my own nature is when I sit down with my banker, who is at Pinnacle, is start talking about what my vision is, where I'm headed.
Yeah.
And it just naturally flows from there. And it has always, gotten him to ask me questions about the details of that. So so on that note, are there things that you're looking for beyond? Is there any sort of structure that you would recommend if we wanted to have this conversation and to control that conversation with our banker when we first sit down with them, so that they're having to ask as few questions as possible?
Yeah.
What would that look like?
Well, I think it's a couple things. The standard financial package, and I've one of my presentations at EO forums is the for better or worse, getting inside the mind of a bank credit analyst. And there are certain obvious things we need to look at from a financial standpoint: your tax returns, financials, year to date, P&L and balance sheet. So that's from a financial standpoint, that's important. You mentioned traction, Rockefeller habits. I mean, quite frankly, the most successful small business owners I know have that template and an operating process in place. And if I'm not familiar with it, or if we're a relatively new relationship, your ability to answer that question or to describe that to me, I wouldn't, I would probably ask that question. What are you doing in terms of making sure you're not if you get hit by the proverbial bus, does the business come apart? Well, no, because I've got a handbook, and I've got the Rockefeller habits. I got traction. I got important people that are all on the same page, and they know where we're going. They're all in the right seats. And that, again, is
trying to get paid back, right?
You got to get that money back.
Let's remember,
it's all pointed in the same direction.
Goal at the end of the day is, how do I get that nickel that I give you back, and maybe a little of interest, a whopping 3 to 4%. Right. But at the end, and that's nice. Well, it could be, there's some other businesses where you make a lot more money, but there's nothing worse. And thankfully, I've had one or two small write-offs, but nothing of any consequence. But there's nothing worse for me personally as a banker or our bank than to lose that loan, to write it off, especially if it's a large loan. And so that's why, because as I said, our source of money, our source of capital, our raw materials are your deposits. So, we can.
It's a Wonderful Life, right? Watch that movie.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right.
You're relying on everybody as deposits.
Exactly right. So we're not, we've got to safeguard them like they're our own. And the regulators, especially in the environment we're in today, are making sure that's the case.
And you've got to grow with the city. I mean, would you say there's the bank is successful because of Nashville?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I'm not just saying that. If you look at any indicator of our financial well-being as a city, Nashville's as good as it gets. I was at a mayor forum just last night, listened to the various candidates, and I remember one person said, if you look at the top 40 cities in the country, the mayors of the top 39 of those 40 cities would trade places with Nashville any day of the week. And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, we've got some issues, as we all know. Getting over here was a pain. I guess that's progress. But transport, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of issues we need to address. But grass isn't always greener. I mean, there's our community is as good as it gets, and from a banker standpoint, from an economic financial standpoint, all of us have been the beneficiary of that growth.
Yeah, I mean, what's on the horizon in the way? I mean, there's been some challenges with some banks throughout this year. Do you see that happening? Is Nashville steered away from that?
I think what you're alluding to, I mean, this whole regional bank crisis from a month or so ago, to answer your question, yes. I think Nashville, peer banks, First Horizon, Regions, Fifth Third, smaller banks, I think the system is sound, and keep in mind the 2 or 3 banks that did go under, their models were somewhat of outliers as it relates to banking and what they were doing. They had a very concentrated clientele. They didn't manage their balance sheet as well as they should, namely their bond portfolio when they didn't hedge the bond. There's a whole host of reasons why a few of those banks went under. So I think our bank and any peer bank that you look at least in this market, arguably is very sound. And if you need your deposits out, you can get those deposits out. Where we are right now in banking, we're schizophrenic. Every 6 months to a year, the cycle changes. A year ago, we needed loans. We had enough deposits. Now it's the reverse. The interest rate spike and the speed of that spike over the last 10 or 15 Fed meetings has really depleted the money supply. So banks are starved for deposits, which is, again, our raw materials. So at some point, and then finally, you can make money on those deposits if you give them to a bank in a money market. But right now, it's
what does that look like for someone that maybe had a large deposit in their bank that does not happen to be Pinnacle?
Right.
What would that look like to bring that cash on over?
It would look attractive. So I'm thinking of throwing out a rate. I mean,
there we go.
It would. We will do what it takes to a point to get that money, and more importantly, to keep the money once it's there. Because loan demand continues to be good, but our deposit base is good too. But it's just all banks are starved for deposits because of sort of what we've seen from the Fed and the money supply just sort of contracting.
So navigate this with me. When you have an entrepreneur that is in crisis, they are stressed about some financial thing. How do you handle that emotional charge that happens with somebody that is in fear? Because we've all been there where, payroll is on Friday and it's like, holy cow, let's roll the dice, baby. I hope that deposit makes it in. And what process do you go through to help?
Again, it sounds cliche and hokey and way too simplified, but it is the relationship. I can, that payroll question. A couple of years ago, there was a former banker who became an entrepreneur, and he was a client of mine, and still is at another firm. And it was a venture-backed company, and they were growing, but it was sort of cash flow was spiky. And so payroll would come around once a month. I'd get a call from him and say, "Look, Roddey, come on, man, help a brother out. I've got payroll coming tomorrow. We need to pay our people. I promise you that 2 or 3 days down the road, we will pass the hat for our investors, and we will pay you back." And without exception, now there were that 2 or 3 days, got every time he paid me back, but come 4 or 5 days, I'm like, all right, I need to see that wire today because I've got $50,000 in the wind. Somebody, I had to get this approved. He came through for me every time. Yeah, and so that, would I have done that with anybody else I hadn't been working with for 2 or 3 years prior to having that conversation? I don't know, but I mean, it just,
you have to have the relationship.
You do have to. It's just that simple. Yeah. And I will, just a funny side note, that same guy, I had lunch with him, I don't know, about the same period. And again, keep in mind, he was a banker and he became an entrepreneur. And this is, 6, 7 years ago. And he said, I said, man, I really admire what you did. You left the corporate world, become an entrepreneur. I think I'd love it. I don't know. Sometimes I have that itch. And he said, all right, Kevin, let me make sure I'm clear on something. You are a banker and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I said, yeah. He said, you get benefits? I said, yep. He said, do you manage people? And I said, no, I don't. He said, I tell you what you do, Kevin. Next time you have that entrepreneurial itch, you get up out of your chair, you put your head between your legs and hit yourself in the nuts a couple of times and realize how good you have it. I said, okay, good chat. Grass isn't always greener.
No. Yeah.
It's easy, man. Trust me.
Just the water's warm.
It's just
boiling hot sometimes.
Once you get used to being uncomfortable all the time, it's perfectly fine.
Well, and that same guy is a CFO of a very large company, is now one of my larger depositors. So it
worked out.
And that, that's one of my more favorite stories of how you go out on a limb to as much as you can being a banker, and how you're not only helping somebody, but sometimes it'll come back and you'll reap dividends down the road.
So get that line of credit lined up before that happens. Is that a good plan?
Ask for money when you don't need the money. Yeah. And there's never everybody. I was just talking to the gentleman here at the studio, talking about a line of credit, $100,000 line of credit, just because is not a bad thing to have, because when it is needed, it's you won't have to go through that conversation like, Mr. Banker, business is down significantly. I need a loan. Well, that's okay. How bad? We want to fund your loss, huh?
Just started off on the wrong foot with that story.
Well, and this is really a testament to what EO is all about.
Yeah.
We have 45 members in a network. And that network inside that network is the next referral to another customer, a vendor, banking relationship, challenges with your having child care or child health care or personal health care. I mean, there's a wide variety of resources. And all the time I'm seeing an email fly through our inbox with a personal ask or some help with a challenging scenario that and through experience share, we can help each other navigate these things that happen. And especially, when you're a new entrepreneur, managing your cash flow is not, when you're working on your personal house, it's one thing. When you're working out with your business and you start having customers that you send an invoice to, and they want to slow pay you, and then that trickle down effect and how that will, place yourself in a kind of a scarcity mindset, even running the business, because you can get to a point where you start being fearful with your team and using scarcity language about, either sales or cash flow. And then now your team is starting to think about going somewhere else or working somewhere else. I mean, so it's, having a group to go and talk to on a monthly basis in what we call a forum scenario is really helpful.
Yeah.
And so we can share these types of challenges that happen.
Yeah. Well, every just a plug for EO. I've never met anybody that doesn't get great value from their membership, primarily from the forum, which is that ad hoc advisory group where you're comparing notes with business owners who are dealing with the same issues. And it's a lot of fun too. So,
what I think is interesting too, like if you go to your Instagram feed and look at entrepreneurship, you see the Lambo, right? You see the guy talking from his big freaking mansion house, right? Talking about entrepreneurship. And when you go to an EO event, we're never talking like that with each other. I never talk to an entrepreneur that is talking about how much money he's making or the cars he's buying or the boat he has. Like, we're talking about the real stuff. Like, we're talking about, man, it's really challenging raising a teenage son.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations that tend to happen.
I never see conspicuous consumption. I mean, literally. I mean, and I see it a lot just in general. And there's a few, and EO and just around, but to your point, the quality of the individual that I've seen and their priorities, from what I can tell, seem to be what, they're looking, typically they're working for someone or something bigger themselves. They got a team that they're trying to support, and they have a genuine interest and even love for that team. And they're looking to build that company either as that, as a lifestyle business for themselves or their employee, or they will reach an exit. I mean, you well know entrepreneurs get bored pretty easily. So at some point they'll reach an exit of some type, which will hopefully be good and allow them to do that. Again, I'm one of my first clients is in the midst of selling his business right now. And he's an EO member, and that's been a great partnership and friendship. And it's been fun to watch. And back to advice, he has, in this conversations he's having with a potential buyer, there are a couple things in the contract that he said, what do you, he asked me about. And I said, look, I'm not you need to get advice from your attorney on some of these, but you may want to ask this or that question, because it doesn't just something doesn't seem
didn't pass the smell test.
Something's why is he not gonna? Why does he want to put that in a note, make you a creditor versus just give you the money? You need to ask about that. So that has been, back to the partnership relationship. That's very fulfilling for me. Is seeing an individual like that who's just a great human being. He's reaching the finish line, and he'll work for the acquiring company, and just like the two of you, you're unemployable. So,
he'll learn real quick.
Give it a year or two and he'll do it again.
When you said work for the acquirer, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I've done that. I did it once.
Yeah. I give them 6 months.
Yeah.
That's part of the advice too, is make sure they don't have you by too short of a chain here. Then you can't get sued on the way out.
we all three know somebody who had an exit not that long ago, and they were asked to just go ahead and go
exactly. They're right.
Yeah. We're just not wired that way.
No.
We like the freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We like the ability to design your own destiny. And when it starts, I think it really starts with when you're not in alignment with that vision, you don't really resonate with it. And it takes a long time to go from your initial vision and sticking with your own vision to like adopting someone else's. You really got to be locked in.
Yeah.
To really feel that. And it takes a while. I mean, if you start any new company, it takes a while just getting the team alignment with what that vision is. And what from this conversation that Pinnacle has done is they've aligned your compensation. So you are an owner in this active pursuit of connecting people and bringing people to the bank. And that's what probably has made the bank so successful.
I think what has made, yes, you're exactly right. That is my mindset. Sometimes that mindset's greater on certain days than others. Where I see it shine is the unspoken heroes in deposit ops and loan ops and the call center who are on the more or less same bonus plan as I. And so when you call our 800 number, it's picked up on the third ring in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and handled by a person that is just like me. Well, is here.
Yeah.
And he or she will make sure that debit card is back up and running because she understands or he understands that it's it's much easier to keep a client than it is to go out and get a new client if we should. So it's worked and it continues to work, and it's just it's been a
that's why we had you on the podcast. We want to keep you as a sponsor. So we have to make sure you're taken care of and that we love you.
You know what? That check is on my desk as we speak, and I was going to see how this podcast went, and you just
honestly, Kevin, thank you for the partnership.
Yeah.
Thanks to Pinnacle. Thanks to their staff. Thanks for being a good friend of EO, and thanks again for joining us with Decision. If you are an entrepreneur here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you want to be around some like-minded, growth-minded individuals that are also thriving to win and want to grow together, we have 4 core values at EO, and that is trust and respect, a thirst for learning, think big, be bold, and together we grow. If you are interested in learning about EO Nashville, visit eonashville.com. We'd love to have you at one of our events to see what it would be like to be a member of EO. Thanks for listening and watching. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.